But anyway, I met them and I didn't know them, I just met them. And then in the early 60s, they came over to do a tour, and I was on the bottom of the bill with the Flintstones with the Rolling Stones. We were bottom of the bill on a Don Arden package, and it was Rolling Stones, the Flintstones, Julie Grant, then it went Bo Diddley, then it went Little Richard, Everly Brothers, top of the bill, and then I really became close with them. And then that was interesting because the way that relationship, that friendship came about was on the entire tour. By then I was a hardened kind of road. I wasn't interested in stardom. Everybody was the same to me. We were all, no matter what, we were all musicians earning a living. And I never really spoke to the Everlys much throughout the whole 6-week tour. and they were quite intrigued with that. And I think a couple of nights before the tour ended, Phil Everly came up to me and said, he said, you never really kind of hang out with us, and you don't really, you just do your job, and you... He said, quite intrigued with you. And he said, are you married? I said, yeah, and he was. He said, would you and your wife like to join my wife and I for dinner at the Trader Vic's at the Mayfair Hotel, which was one of the most beautiful hotels in London at the time. Aubusson carpets, armoires, Georgian furniture. It was just gorgeous, you know, I loved that. That's how we met. And then Phil said, do you have any dreams? I said, yeah, I want to go to America. And he just said, you got it. And there were only 3 ways you could go to America those days. One was either you had a job and a contract to prove you had a job. 2, you had to have enough money. That amount of money had to be determined by the American government. Or 3, you had a sponsor. And Phil sponsored me. And his earnings those years was something like 300,000 or 400,000 a year, which is, bearing in mind they were the biggest group in the world at the time, alongside with whatever. So I was sponsored, and I went over. I wasn't going to be playing for them, and that came about by accident. I was living with Phil, who was as rich as he, big a star as he was, and as rich as he was. I lived in a 30-room house with him and his wife and my wife, and we had kids there and the whole thing. And one day they were going out to do a tour in the Far East and Europe, and they had a bass player called Dale Holcomb. He got on a trip through the Amazon. He got lost, so he never turned up. He didn't come back. He knew the Everlys were going back out, never turned out. So about a week before the Everlys were due to embark on Manila for this whole tour and all through the Far, and all, there was no bass player. I thought, well, shit, we better audition. I'm a guitarist, by the way, so they were auditioning for bass players. And in Phil's house, he had a huge cottage, a garage below, a cottage above, where they were having these rehearsals. And who was holding the rehearsals? Buddy Holly had already died. So it was the Crickets. So it was J.I., Sonny Curtis, the other guitarist, and J.I., the drummer. And they were rehearsing throughout the day, bass players. And I'm in the house with my wife and watching TV or doing whatever, and the Everlys are out there doing all these auditions. And then there was a lunch break, and Don and Phil came in the house, and I thought, well, I'll go out and sit down with J.I. and Sonny. And they stayed in the cottage, they were jamming. I thought I'd go and jam, and so I went up there, and I was just jamming with them on the guitar. And then I think the Sonny Curtis said, do you play bass, Terry? I said, well, I don't play bass. I could play bass because it's the same root note and all that. And I picked up the bass. This is the God's truth. I'd never touched a bass in my life. And they said, well, let's play this. So we played Bye Bye Love. I said, give me the chords. And Sonny and Joe, I said, that's brilliant. So they went back into the house and said to Don and Phil, have you heard Terry play bass? And they, well, no, he doesn't play bass, he's a guitarist. He's brilliant. I said, what do you mean he's brilliant? We've just been through half the songs of your cat, and he's brilliant. So Don and Phil came back up into the cottage, and we played these songs. And they said, Don and Phil said, do you want a job? Oh, well, shit, I just died. I want a job. Playing for Don and Phil, this is brilliant. So I rushed back in the house, and my wife, they want me to play for them. And he said, well, we started you off on $400 a week. $400 a week? I couldn't believe it.